This story started about 6 months ago when somehow I stumbled upon this advertisement on Banggood that Orlandoo-Hunter is selling or making this rock crawler, and this is a 1:32 scale model, RC model. Well, actually it's an RC kit, and I thought, oh, that would be great because that really goes with my gauge 1 outdoor railway, which is also 1:32 scale. And I do know that there are a few options if you want to have RC model vehicles in 1:32 scale. For example, Shiku makes quite a few agriculture devices like tractors, and I think it's mainly tractors. And they also come with a sound unit and lights, and this is what I really like. It's like a like a complete kit with everything, just like with digital trains where you have sounds and lights. Now I have an RC car which can do that, and it's the same scale. And even though I don't have any provision for any roads in my layout, maybe I can add some roads around the station and some of the other areas. And whilst I'm running trains, maybe I can also play around with some RC cars and drive them around the garden. So this is how this whole adventure started. And by the way, I'm going to leave the uncut footage of me driving around that you can see in the background at the end of the video. So if you want to watch it again with my voiceover, then you can do it at the end of the video. But let me tell you about the car in the beginning. So as you can see, it is I think it's a first generation Land Rover Defender. And as I said, this comes as a kit, so everything you need to assemble yourself. I'm just going to open up the box and show you the manuals and the remaining parts in a few minutes. So for the time being, we can just have a look at the car itself. It really comes in, I don't know how many really small pieces, and then you can see you pretty much have to put everything together. So the suspension, these linking arms, and the drivetrain, the gearbox, everything comes in pieces. It is definitely a challenge. I mean, I haven't done anything like this before, so I've done it over a couple of months. I must have spent about, I don't know, maybe 20 hours in total doing this. And there were a few issues along the way, not big ones, mainly around clarity around the documentation. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the video, but it wasn't really, it wasn't too much. It wasn't something that I couldn't figure out. I just needed a little bit of time. But this is definitely something that you should only, start if you are confident putting some fine model with so many small details together. I mean, not so many details here on the front. Maybe mostly it's about like getting all these parts assembled, and because everything comes in pieces. So for example, this link arm, the plastic parts on both ends are separate piece, and then this rod is a separate piece. So obviously you have to put it together. You have to make sure that it's the right length. And you will see from the documentation how many small pieces it comes from. Almost everything gets screwed together. Only the decorative details, for example, this handrails, the lights, and some of these small plastic parts are glued on. Other than those, pretty much everything is screwed together with really small screws. And just to talk about the the specs, obviously it is RC controlled. It has a motor somewhere here in the middle. It is 4-wheel drive. Technically, I don't think it has differential because it's basically just two 90-degree gears, but it has full suspension on all 4 wheels. And as you have seen in the video, it's fairly low speed. So it's it's a proper rock crawler. Although in some cases I would like if it could go even slower, because if I really want to go up on a rock or really want to do slow, I have to be really careful with the throttle. And besides the basic RC capabilities, the receiver inside also has a built-in option for different lights and also for a sound module. So there is a small speaker somewhere inside. You're going to see if I remove the chassis, and it's able to produce a 3 dB, 4 dB, 5 dB, 6 dB, 7 dB, 8 dB, 9 dB, 10 dB, 11 dB, 12 dB, 13 dB, 14 dB, 15 dB, 16 dB, 17 dB, 18 dB, 19 dB, 20 dB, 21 dB, 22 dB, 23 dB, 24 dB, 25 dB, 26 dB, 27 dB, 28 dB, 29 dB, 30 dB, 31 dB, 32 dB, 33 dB, 34 dB, 35 dB, 36 dB, 37 dB, 38 dB, 39 dB, 40 dB, 41 dB, 42 dB, 43 dB, 44 dB, 45 dB, 46 dB, 47 dB, 48 dB, 49 dB, 50 dB, 51 dB, 52 dB, 53 dB, 54 dB, 55 dB, 56 dB, 57 dB, 58 dB, 59 dB, 60 dB, 61 dB, 62 dB, 63 d like these. Actually, it has two different sounds, but this diesel sound, I think that's more suited for the Land Rover. And obviously it has a startup sound when the engine starts and it gets revved up, and then based on the speed that you are driving, it automatically changes the sound, which mimics the revolution of the engine. And if you leave the car idle, I think after 5 seconds the engine shuts down. And when you pull the throttle again, then first it plays the engine startup sound and then it starts moving. So it is almost like the trains. And as I said, it also has lights, and I've shown this in the video. So we have headlights, we have indicator lights, we have auxiliary lights, which the additional white lights. On the back we have brake lights, and we also have reversing lights. And all you have to do is you turn on lights, and whether you are turning the vehicle or whether you are reversing, the indicator lights and the reversing lights come on automatically. I have configured or I wired the auxiliary lights for these small white lights, but I think on some models you can have you can install a floodlight on the top, and those would be the auxiliary lights. This car is actually very light. It's only 132 grams with the battery installed. So it easily bounces around in the rocks as I drive around. And because I've picked a slightly bigger battery, I think the rear suspensions are a little bit depressed at the moment. But the kit also provides some spacers, so I think I should be able to pre-tension the rear suspension, so then it's going to stay flat with the battery, which is sort of just above the rear axle. The model and the remote control is two separate products, because I'm assuming that this remote control probably works with many of the other Orlandoo-Hunter models. So you buy the car, which contains everything to basically build up the bodywork and also the drivetrain, and then the remote, the receiver, and some of the accessories, even the lights, are in a separate kit that you have to purchase separately. I have no idea if this receiver is compatible with other 2.4 gigahertz transmitter as well, but because it has the integrated sound unit and also the light control, maybe it is to some extent proprietary. And just to give you a rough demo, so it comes with an on-off switch, which I've mounted here, and you turn it on, and then you turn on the receiver as well. I have the lights turned on, so the light comes on. By the way, the receiver shows you the battery voltage of the transmitter, and well, it's pretty much the standard controls. You have throttle, so that's the startup sound, and of course you have proportional control. And when you reverse, so the reverse sometimes is finicky, but you can see the reversing lights. And when you turn to some extent, then the indicator lights come on. And as you can see, the sound turns off after a couple of seconds. And you have a button here that you control the lights with. So one click turns the lights on, another click turns the lights on, double click turns the hazards on, long press turns the auxiliary lights on. You can have only the auxiliary lights on, and 3 clicks turns on the special lighting mode on. Yeah, great. And let me show you the back as well. So this is the back of the car, and if I'm driving, then the red lights, the red indicator lights dim, and when I stop they become a little bit brighter, like they are the rear lights and the brake lights in the same. And I've already showed you how it looks like when it's reversing. And it looks a little bit funny, and that's because I couldn't really figure out how to install the LEDs. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And also you have a pot here to control the loudness of the sound, and if you turn it all the way down, then the sound unit turns off. So for example, if I start driving, then there is no sound. So it might get a little bit annoying after some time, so you can just turn it off. And just a few more things about this model, just to highlight some of the details. So you have these rubber mud guards on all 4 wheels. There is a step ladder that you can actually fold down like this. and you can also fold it back up. There is even a small light to illuminate the, the license plate. And of course you have seen the different light fittings on the back. There is indicator lights on the front. There's more lights here on the, indicator lights on the side. There's more lights on the front. And well, that's pretty much it. There is no internal details because the internals are pretty much taken up with the receiver and all the electronics. And but that's pretty much it. And you also have rubber tires, and you have a spare tire on the back, which is actually the same size, so you can actually use it as a spare tire. And also when you finish the model, you have some external details, so windscreen wipers, the mirrors, which are the first thing that break off when you roll the vehicle, and a few other details that you can see here. And of course, since this is a kit, it also comes unpainted. So you have the top chassis that comes as a a gray molding, and you just have to get your own paint to paint it to whatever color you want. I wanted this to be red, and I actually bought a red paint, but it turned out more a purple. So I think this is probably not a typical Land Rover color. I don't think they were sold in this color, but actually I quite like it. And of course you have to paint the roof and these details separately. And then for the rest of the plastic parts, for example, the grills and then the bumpers and everything, they are just a default black color that comes from the molding, just like all the other parts. I haven't weathered anything, so I just spray painted the top, and everything else was assembled and came from the kit as you can see it now. I think I finished this model probably only last week, so I haven't played an awful lot around. Installing the servo and the transmitter was actually really easy because everything was paired together. So I just literally had to, plug the wires and of course solder the lights, and it was ready to go. So I turned on the transmitter and the receiver, and well, I was off to go. I haven't spent an awful lot of time learning about the various features of the transmitter, but then it can do all the usual functions that you would expect. So, trimming the throttle and also the steering, and then it has some other details. And by the way, this is how the transmitter looks, this is how the receiver looks like. So you can see that it has all the different plugs for the, the battery, the switch, the motor, the speaker, the lights, and then the servo. And that's pretty much it. It's a really, really small package. And you get a separate distribution board for the lights. This is where you solder the wires to. As you can see, the manual is Chinese and English, and it's really good English. It's easy to understand what you need to do. And then it also goes through a little bit of things like how you do the calibration, and also some of the the settings, how you set the throttle, and some of the trimming, which I still have to do because for some reason I think it turns much better in one direction than the other. So I just have to play around with it. And probably here somewhere I would maybe also be able to set the minimum and the maximum speed. So I would be able to slow it down to some extent, and it would be more easier for me to drive in, around rocks and stuff. So this box is the receiver box, and actually that's pretty empty now. There's nothing inside. I think I do have there is like a one-page leaflet, and I also got some stickers, but that's pretty much it. I've already used all the parts from this one. And the other box is the actual kit itself, and it still has a lot of different parts in it. Mostly because I kept all the spares, and I've also have some leftover moldings, because it looks like that some of the drivetrain elements are probably common in some of the other Orlandoo-Hunter models. So there are a few parts which were not needed for this model, but they are probably supplied with some of the other models as well. So you can see that there are a few bits and pieces here, but everything comes in a labeled box like this one. So this is package D. All these moldings have an ID here that you can see, and also there are numbers next to the various moldings. And these are the numbers that are being referenced in the documentation as well. So it is really easy to identify what piece you need for various steps. And it also looks like that they have used the same molding to mold yellow, white, and then red parts, and you just need to use whichever is required. So you have a red and yellow and white version of the, you know, the headlights glass and the indicator lights, but of course you only use the white one for the headlights and the yellow one for the indicator lights. I guess this is just to save some cost. And what I really like, that the kit comes with two tools. So it comes with a small screwdriver, which is perfect for each of the screws, and it also comes with a nut driver, which is to secure the wheels. And not to mention that you are also getting some accessories. So, well, actually this came with a servo, which wasn't needed, but as you can see, you are getting a small Allen key. You have these really small parts that the links clip onto, and also you have a bunch of different screws, and I think there are probably 10 different screw sizes for this model. And as you can see, everything is separately packaged, everything is labeled, so when you are assembling the model, you actually know which screws to use. So for example, you have these, you know, 1205 screws, and you have some other screws as well, and they are all the same size, perfect for the screwdriver, so it's really easy to drive them, they don't slip. And as you can see, there are plenty of spare screws provided in the package, so if you lose a few, you are going to be fine. Otherwise, all the spares can be ordered from Orlandoo-Hunter, but probably would take a month. So that would increase the assembly process if you have to order some spare parts. Well, unless you pay for the most expensive shipping, I guess. So as you can see, I have some bits and pieces that are left. You know, from the plastic parts, if everything breaks, I don't think that there would be any spares. So just, you know, take your time when you're assembling these models, because these details are really fine. So you can potentially break them, although I didn't, and you know, everything seemed, you know, fairly, well, definitely very good quality, and also very decent, you know, strength in terms of, you know, handling it, and you know, not breaking the parts when you are trying to screw things together, or when you are trying to, you know, screw into some of the pre-drilled holes. And this is how the instruction manual looks like. So you can see the various moldings and the different parts. And then, so these are the various parts that come with it. And yeah, also the screws and the tools. And then this is how the assembly manual looks like. So, you know, this is package A. These are the various parts that you need to work on. And then it actually tells you that this is the molding from the, you know, 20510 part, and this is part number 1. And that's how you put together. The pictures pretty much explain everything. There are a couple of words when it shows you that you need to pay attention, or some pictures that you have to pay attention to. Just make sure that the alignment is right. Otherwise, things are not going to fit and not going to work. But as you can see, for example, this is how the links get connected. So you have this really small, I don't know how it's called. These were actually difficult to get onto the model, because it looks like that the pre-drilled holes in the plastic parts are really small. So I used a, what is it, a tweezer, not this one, the one which has a pointy end, and I used it as a reamer to increase that size a little bit, because I couldn't get this into that, you know, hole with the Allen key, and I was afraid that I'm going to break something off, so I rather increase the hole size. And that's how you assemble the various linking arms and yeah, the motors and everything. So the first issue that I run into is actually installing the lights, because, you know, pretty much in the middle of the assembly, you have this step here where you have to solder the SMD LEDs. And as you can see here in the documentation here, it says SMD LED, SMD LED, SMD LED. So it doesn't tell you which color. And the kit comes like this. So you are getting these small, you know, ribbons of SMD LEDs. I mean, you can tell that this is the yellow and that's the red and the white, or the other way around. So you can tell which one is which. But the documentation doesn't tell you which order you need to put in. So I had to look up pictures on the internet, how, you know, the Land Rover Defender looks like, where the various lights are. And I still managed to mess it up, especially in the back, because I couldn't really figure out how it all goes together. So you can see that you have, you know, the lights here, lights on the front and the lights on the back. And there are so many different LEDs. So you have like 3 LEDs here and then the 4th one. And on the other side, also there's 3 LEDs and then 2 more. So I mark it for myself on this paper that you have the main headlights. That's white. And then above that, that's going to be the white accessory light. And under that, that's going to be orange for the indicator light. And of course, this is the orange. That's the indicator light on the side. And then when it comes to the back, then the 3 lights that are under each other, it's red, yellow, and red. And I think this is my brake light, so that needs to be white. And on the other side, so again, the 3 LEDs under each other is red, yellow, and red. And I also put a white LED here, but I think it should be actually red. So that probably is another brake light, and that should be a white light because the top one illuminates the license plate, which is actually not working on mine. And of course, the front cluster is the same again. So a white indicator, a white headlight, and the white auxiliary light on the top, and the yellow turning light, and also a yellow turning light on the side. So if you look at the back, you can see the red lights, which I think they are prototypical. And if I turn the side, you can see the indicator lights that flash yellow as well. I think that's cool as well. So that's okay. And if I reverse, then you can see these 2 lights come on. And I think this is probably the reverse light, so that should be white. But that probably should be like a brake light, same as this red one here. So I think I should have put a red one here and then wire it up together with the brake lights. And the top one here, that would illuminate the license plate. So that should be a white, which is wired together with the headlights. So that's the mistake I've made, and that's why I said that the documentation really lacks these details here. So and actually I was trying to contact Orlandoo-Hunter, so I sent them an email. I didn't receive any response, and because I had a contact with Banggood, I asked them to contact Orlandoo-Hunter, and they told me that the documentation I have should explain everything. And maybe I'm just so dumb and I haven't seen the details, but it doesn't say which color, it just says SMD LEDs. Or maybe I should have used white everywhere and then just rely on the color of the actual plastic to illuminate it. But you need to know which color goes to where, because you have to wire it yourself. And also in the back, you have, when you are installing the various lights, so this is one of the last steps, it shows you that you have these small parts, and for example, this says CY, and the other says, let me find the back one. Yeah, CY, CR, CY. And I mean, it would have been nice if there is a little bit more explanation. I managed to figure out this is like CR means color red and CY is color Y. So these are the red parts and then the yellow parts. Of course, they do mention here in the beginning that, which is clear and clear yellow and clear red. But by the time I got to this part, I had no idea that was mentioned in the beginning. But I mean, you do figure out at the end. That was the only thing that I sort of missed. And this is how the car looks like with the top removed. It's really easy to remove it because there is a clip here, like a catch here, and also in the back. So, and there are some recesses here on the front and the back. So you just have to remove that, and it's easy to disassemble. But I don't think that you need to remove the top at all because, well, it really depends how you do this. But I have this small, connector for the battery, and I decided that to put the connector here, so it's basically dangling here at the back. So I don't need to remove the top to access this one. So I can just plug the charger in. I'm using this very simple USB charger, which are actually a little bit too much for this small battery, but this way I don't need to remove the top to charge the battery. And as you can see, it's pretty much a mess in here, and that's my other big concern or big reservations about this model is they could have put a little bit more cable management in the model, like a few moldings which help you to guide these wires, because these wires are absolutely, minuscule. It was difficult enough to solder them, and also it was difficult enough to just judge how much you need to cut the wires, because all you are getting a couple of wires that are not pre-cut, so you just get a spool of what is it, yellow and gray and red and black. You get most of the black, that's for ground. So you just have to figure out right in the beginning where you're going to put this distribution board and then cut the wires based on that. So it needs a little bit of pre-planning. And I've seen quite a few Orlandoo-Hunter videos, or model videos, where the model was put together, the engine and the receiver, everything was in, but nobody has bothered to install the LEDs or the lights. And I think that's probably because of a lack of documentation. For example, the document itself, so this assembly guide doesn't talk anything about how you install where you put the wires, where you put the receiver, what is the best place for this distribution board. So you have to figure out everything for yourself. And well, this is what I come up with. So I have the small speaker. Actually, the speaker is facing inwards. So I glued it with double-sided tape to this side plate. And I have the receiver sandwiched in between the main chassis, and there is also this plastic plate in here. So everything is plugged in. Unfortunately, I can't show it right now because everything is night, and then you actually have to sandwich everything in. It even bent this plastic piece up a little bit, but hey ho, everything works. You have to solder the small LEDs right in the middle of the assembly process without knowing how the whole, the complete model is going to look like, where you can place the batteries, and you can see the small LEDs that are you need to solder the wires, and then you have to glue everything into its place. Actually, some of the LEDs have a small plastic retaining element. So you put the LED inside, and then you can screw a plate which is going to hold them in place. But of course you have to glue it in, because there is no way you can hold the LEDs and then wire that plastic part as well. These indicator lights have no retaining plastic, so they definitely have to get glued in place. And that was the most finicky part of the process, because you do the soldering, and what I did is I checked every step of the way just to make sure that I got the soldering is fine, the solder is not broken, I got the polarity right. So I soldered the two wires to the LEDs, I tested the LEDs, I installed the LEDs, and I tested them again just to make sure that I don't end up with a pretty much finished model and then realize that one of the indicator lights are not working. And this is how the back assembly looks like. So you'd have the 3 LEDs, and then you have 2 here, and that's for now I realize that that's for the license plate, which I haven't installed. You have 3 more here, and that's the brake light. And you pretty much just, wire all the LEDs individually, and this is why you have such a mess here. And I just tried my best to route the wires around, and I just used masking tape to hold it in place. And when I had some excess wires, I just looped them around, and I also tried to secure it with some tape. Maybe in retrospect, I should have figured out how to, what color LEDs to put here based on what color these plastics go in. So obviously, because this is red, this is probably not going to be a reverse light. This would be a stop light or something like that. But hey ho, well, I guess you learn. But I've definitely promised myself that, once these LEDs goes in, I'm not going to disassemble it. So it's going to stay as it is right now. And just to finish up with the wiring, there is an on-off switch. So there is no mention in the documentation where you can put it. So I just super glued it on the side here. I just figured, because there are some things here, these linking arms, and this is lower profile, it's not going to cause any issues. Well, this might get catch on things when you are reversing into a slope, but actually it doesn't. So I think this is fine as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. For some reason, I didn't receive a battery for the receiver, and I think this comes with a 250 milliamp hours battery. I don't know whether it was missed or it was not put into the package because of shipping issues. So I just purchased this 300 milliamp hour battery separately. And yeah, as I said, maybe it's a little bit too heavy. and that's why it is depressing the shock absorbers, the rear shocks a little bit. But as I said, it is possible to put like a clip in here so you can pre-tension these shocks, and hopefully that's going to be fine, but I'm not too bothered about that. So I think that's pretty much it. That's where this model stands. As I said, I still probably need to do some tweaking on the transmitter and maybe adjust some of the linkages here. But other than that, yeah, I just followed the instruction. I just looped some of the moving parts. It wasn't strictly mentioned in the documentation, but I thought it's not going to hurt. I literally just finished putting the model together about a week ago, and I've been playing with it a little bit on and off. I still hadn't needed to charge the batteries, even though I'm using the lights on. So I can't really tell you how much, you know, runtime you get with one, you know, with a fully charged battery. But I think it's probably going to be, you know, fairly typical, and you know, you should be able to play around with it with, you know, with the lights and the sounds on for some time. I'm really happy that I have actually purchased this model. Now I need to build some, you know, roads in my garden layout, and I can hopefully play with this next summer because it's getting, you know, really dark and humid outside. But that's pretty much it. So this is the Orlandoo-Hunter or Orlandoo-Hunter 132 scale Defender model with the supplied transmitter and receiver, so all the pack as well. If you're interested in this model, I'm going to leave some purchasing links in the video description, but that would be all for now. If you stick around, you can see the uncut footage of me driving this car around in the garden. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.